Prologue. Smoke and Diamonds, a warlock named Elias, attempts to summon the demon Agramon in the luxurious penthouse of the Metropole in Manhattan. Despite his nervousness, Elias draws a pentagram on the marble floor, while a man, later revealed as Valentine, impatiently urges him to hurry. After completing the pentagram, Elias begins chanting in Chthonian, summoning Agramon. The demon appears, threatening Elias. As Elias tries to contain Agramon, the demon breaks free, overpowering him. Valentine, holding the mortal cup, reveals he orchestrated the summoning and asserts his control over Agramon, introducing himself as Valentine. Part 1. A Season in Hell. In Chapter 1 of Valentine's Arrow, Alec, Jace, and Isabel argue in an elevator after a demon-hunting mission. Upon returning home, their mother, Maris, confronts Jace about his injuries and the whereabouts of Hodge, expressing concern over his ties to Valentine. Tensions rise as Jace struggles with his identity and the truth about his father. Meanwhile, Clary tries to distract herself with Simon, who is visibly affected by their recent experiences. Their moment of intimacy is interrupted by a call from Isabel, revealing that Jace is missing, escalating the urgency of the situation. In Chapter 2, Maya recalls her abusive past, including her brother Daniel's death and her relationship with Jordan. After being attacked by a wolf, she discovers her lycanthropy and joins a werewolf pack in Manhattan. At the Hunter's Moon Bar, tension arises when a shadow hunter, Jace, arrives, provoking the pack's ire. Bat reports a dead boy in an alley suspected to be a lycanthrope, heightening tensions. Luke, the pack leader, intervenes to prevent conflict, emphasizing that shadow hunters are allies. Meanwhile, Clary and Simon discuss Jace's troubles, leading Clary to seek him out, revealing her concern for his well-being. In Chapter 3, Clary, Jace, and Luke arrive at the Institute, which now appears as a grand Gothic cathedral. Jace realizes he lacks his keys and Staley, but the doors open magically at his request. Inside, they encounter Maris Lightwood and Raphael, a vampire, discussing recent murders involving Downworlders. Luke reveals his identity to Maris, prompting a tense conversation about past betrayals during the uprising. Luke supports Jace's request for a trial before the Clave, asserting that Jace is telling the truth. Despite concerns about the Inquisitor's arrival, Jace decides to stay and face the consequences. In Chapter 4, Clary and Simon wait for pizza while discussing Jocelyn's condition. Luke informs them that there's been no change. Clary feels that something is missing regarding her mother's recovery. Luke reflects on Shadowhunter life, mentioning Jace's commitment to it. They learn about Maya, a werewolf, and Luke gives Clary a Stelly, her mother's old tool, emphasizing its importance. Meanwhile, Jace wakes up to find Alec at his door, who conveys their parents' concerns about him. Jace heads to the library, where he meets the Inquisitor, who harshly asserts his identity as Jonathan Morgenstern, rejecting his claim to the Wayland name. In Chapter 5, Jace is trapped in a dark cell in the Silent City, struggling with panic and recalling his father's lessons. He encounters the bloodied brother Jeremiah, only to discover Valentine, his father, is responsible for his death and the slaughter of the Silent Brothers. Valentine tries to explain his actions, claiming Jace is now old enough for the truth. As tension mounts, Valentine disappears, leaving Jace in darkness. Meanwhile, Clary, worried about Jace, rushes to the Institute. There, she learns Jace is imprisoned in the Silent City for disrespecting the Inquisitor. Clary insists on going to help him. In Chapter 6, Isabel marks Clary with 2 runes before they head downtown to the Marble Cemetery. They enter the Silent City and find it eerily quiet. Clary recalls her last visit with Brother Jeremiah and notices the names and runes on the walls. Alec uses his blood as a key, revealing a dark hole leading underground. As they descend, they smell rotting fruit and discover a Silent Brother's body impaled on a spire. Clary senses Jace is nearby and rushes to a cell where she finds him alive but injured. The group learns Brother Jeremiah is dead, and something has killed the Silent Brothers. They escape as shadows seem to pulse around them and emerge into a gathering of shadow hunters led by Maris, who recognizes Clary and Isabel. In Chapter 7, Clary and the others encounter a large gathering of shadow hunters. Alec reveals that the Silent Brothers have been murdered, shocking the crowd. The Inquisitor insists they check the Bone City for survivors. Jace claims that Valentine took the mortal sword, leading to a heated discussion about Valentine's intentions and the potential threat he poses. Jace collapses from an unknown ailment, and Alex suggests seeking help from Magnus, the High Warlock of Brooklyn. The Inquisitor reluctantly agrees, and Magnus arrives prepared to assist Jace, signaling a pivotal shift in the group's next steps. Part 2. The Gates of Hell. In Chapter 8, Clary dreams of her mother marking her with a protective rune. She and Simon visit Jace, who reveals Valentine killed the Silent Brothers for the Soul Sword. Alex suggests visiting the Sealy Court for allies. There, the Queen dismisses their concerns until Jace explains Valentine's actions. She agrees to help, but insists Clary must stay, marked by fairy magic. To free Clary, Jace must kiss her, leading to an intense moment that both astonishes and disturbs them. Afterward, they leave the court, but Simon has disappeared, striding away alone as Clary calls for him. In Chapter 9, Clary and Jace arrive at the deserted institute and find Max asleep. Clary struggles with her feelings for Jace and opts to wait in his room. They argue about their emotions, escalating until Jace withdraws hurt. At 3 a.m., Clary believes Simon has arrived, leading them to the cathedral. They find Raphael holding Simon's bloodied body, revealing he is dying but not dead yet. Raphael explains Simon will become a vampire due to drinking his blood. Clary insists on burying Simon in a Jewish cemetery, determined to be there when he awakens. They must act quickly before dawn. In Chapter 10, Clary, Jace, Isabel, and Raphael sneak into a cemetery to bury Simon. Clary asks Raphael if Simon suffered during his death, and he reassures her that the blood death is gentle. Despite Jace's attempts to distract her, Clary insists on being present for Simon's resurrection. When Simon rises, he appears disoriented and aggressive, attacking Clary before Raphael intervenes. Simon is ravenous for blood, and Raphael provides him with packets of animal blood. Clary is horrified by the scene, overwhelmed by guilt and sickness, ultimately fleeing the clearing as she vomits in distress. In Chapter 11, Clary visits her mother, Jocelyn, in the hospital, feeling guilty about Simon's transformation into a vampire. She believes she's responsible despite Luke's reassurances. After their talk, Clary finds Simon on Luke's porch, where he struggles with his new identity and the prospect of telling his family. Clary encourages him to be honest, handing him a pamphlet titled, "How to Come Out to Your Parents." Their conversation is interrupted when Luke arrives, having hit a Drivak demon with his truck. He rushes to help Maya, who is injured. Luke decides to remove the demon's poisonous spines from her arm. In Chapter 12, Clary and her friends confront multiple threats, testing their relationships and resolve. Clary, Simon, and Jace find Luke injured, discovering Ram demons are responsible. Jace takes the lead in the fight, skillfully defeating one demon, while Clary manages to defend herself from another. After Magnus heals Luke, tensions rise when Jace exposes Alex's relationship with Magnus, causing awkwardness among them. Clary's complex feelings surface when she struggles to balance her affection for Jace and her connection with Simon. Heartbroken, Simon leaves, realizing Clary cannot fully commit to him, leaving her conflicted and alone. In Chapter 13, Jace contacts Raphael and secures a demonic motorcycle to reach Valentine's ship. On board, he encounters Agramon, the demon of fear, who appears as Clary, intensifying his inner conflict. After passing out, he awakens to a conversation with Valentine, who manipulates him with talk of loyalty, power, and their Shadowhunter heritage. Valentine reveals his plan to overthrow the Clave using an army of demons, showing Jace the Soul Sword's power to summon them. Valentine tries to sway Jace with promises of protecting his friends and Clary. Overwhelmed, Jace ultimately agrees to join Valentine, sealing his decision. Part 3. Day of Wrath. In Chapter 14, Clary, at Luke's house, discusses recent events with Magnus and Luke. Jace and Alec arrive, revealing Jace's rule-breaking, and Clary hints at her potential to create original runes. When Jace suggests a fearless rune, Clary sketches it, testing it on Alec, but its effects remain uncertain. Suddenly, Isabel, Maris, and Robert Lightwood arrive with the Inquisitor, accusing Jace of visiting Valentine. Confrontations arise, with Alec hesitantly criticizing Jace, sparking discord among friends. Magnus leaves, and the Inquisitor restrains Jace, preparing to take him to Idris for judgment, leaving Clary and others distressed. In Chapter 15, Luke warns Clary about Jace's potential exile in Idris. Meanwhile, Maya encounters a demon resembling her late brother Daniel, only for Valentine to intervene, leaving her terrified. At the Institute, The Inquisitor traps Jace in a painful prison of light, intending to trade him for the mortal instruments. Alec arrives, supporting Jace in devising an escape plan, giving him a tool to unlock his restraints. Elsewhere, Clary contacts Simon, only for Valentine to answer after Simon's house is attacked. As Jace prepares to escape, he channels his training and determination, attempting a daring leap to freedom. In Chapter 16, Clary and Luke discover Simon's broken phone and a message revealing Valentine has captured him and Maya for a dark ritual requiring Downworlder blood. Meanwhile, Jace defies the Inquisitor, escapes, and plans a rescue with Magnus. Simon wakes in a locked room with Maya, who reveals they are on a boat surrounded by demons. Clary spots Jace on the Institute's roof, and he jumps down to her. They narrowly escape pursuing Shadowhunters. In a separate scene, Valentine confronts Simon and Maya using silver powder to torture Maya and ultimately threatens Simon with a deadly angel blade, slashing his throat as he whispers Clary's name. In Chapter 17, Clary, Jace, and Luke devise a plan to rescue Maya and Simon from Valentine, who intends to summon the greater demon Agramon. Jace chooses to confront Valentine alone and asks Clary for the Fearless Rune. As they travel with Magnus, Isabel and Alec overhear a tense conversation between their mother, Mayris, and the Inquisitor Imogen about Valentine's threats. While Clary and Jace are ambushed by flying demons during their magical journey, Clary is captured, prompting Jace and Luke to jump into the river to save her. Meanwhile, Mayris takes command, asserting the need for all Shadowhunters in the upcoming battle. In Chapter 18, Clary is captured by a demon and learns from Maya that Simon is dead, killed by Valentine. Jace and Luke fight demons on the ship's deck, where Jace recalls Valentine's threats while protecting Luke. Clary attempts to escape using her Steely, but is caught by Valentine. The Inquisitor informs Jace of Valentine's betrayal and his true parentage before sacrificing herself to save him. As Jace struggles against the demon, Alec jumps back to help him, but the demon attacks, throwing Alec overboard. Jace, witnessing Alec's fall, feels helpless as the deck collapses beneath him. In Chapter 19, Clary confronts Valentine, declaring Luke as her true father. She defies his ideology and, empowered, draws a powerful rune on the ship's bulkhead, causing a catastrophic breach that floods the ship. Jace awakens to find Simon gravely injured and gives him his blood, which revives Simon but leaves him needing blood. Clary is swept away by the flood and wakes in Luke's truck. Despite the chaos, she learns that demons drowned, but the Shadowhunters were rescued by water fairies. As the sun rises, Clary desperately tries to protect Simon from sunlight, but he surprisingly remains unharmed, revealing a change in his nature. Meanwhile, Jace grapples with leaving the Institute, facing an emotional confrontation with Mayris about his place in their family. Epilogue. Clary visits Simon, recovering from her illness after the battle. They discuss Simon's vampirism and his hesitance about their romantic relationship, leaving Clary distressed. Clary rides with Luke, who reveals his unspoken love for her mother, Jocelyn, prompting Clary to reflect on honesty in relationships. She seeks Jace at the Institute to talk, where they confront their feelings. Jace apologizes for not listening and acknowledges the risks of their connection. Clary's heart breaks as she agrees to keep their relationship platonic. Later, she encounters a mysterious woman, Madeline, who claims she can help awaken Jocelyn, revealing her mother's dire situation.